Salvage is probably one of the most personal things I've ever written. In 2007, I received this sort of surprising news of a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Something I've lived with for the past 9 years. The night I was diagnosed, just out of instinct, I reached for one of my favorite choral music CDs, Eric Whitacre's Cloudburst, and I listened to that music and the sound of the voices, and it was so comforting to me. There was something about that human sonority that really spoke to me. I've been living in Los Angeles for over 20 years, having this amazing life, mostly telling other people's stories, writing music for all sorts of films, documentaries, and TV shows. And I felt, I think through what this personal experience, I felt a need to sort of reconnect and maybe tell something from my own point of view. The hardship, but also what do we do as humans when we have to face a difficult thing, whether it's an illness or a loss or whatever, and how do we process that? How do we come out the other side? And I've always felt that music is one of the most powerful instruments of catharsis, and that was really the genesis of the piece. The same year this happened I just happened to be working on a wonderful documentary that Al Pacino had been directing called Wild Salome. Story of Oscar Wilde, his personal story, which is very tragic and sad, and there was some beautiful poetry in there that was read in the movie. And so in the beginnings of looking for text, I discovered some opening stanzas in De Profundis. This worst thing that happened to him, being thrown in prison as a gay man in a very intolerant society. And it's very sort of passionate writing. It's beautiful, and the last line of that little section I chose was, "Where there is suffering, there is holy ground," and I just love that. And it's like that's something that we all can understand. Sometimes the hardest things that we go through in life is the thing that refines us and makes us connect and discover things. Well, I always had this idea that the Oscar Wilde poetry would sort of be the framing device, but I wanted to find some poetry by a living poet as sort of the central text. And I discovered through a good friend, Mark Salzman, a writer, a friend, the poetry of Kate Ryan. And as soon as I started reading her work, I just knew this was the perfect fit. She has this beautiful sense of economy in her writing and a bit of a sense of humor, but she's not afraid to sort of tackle more existential and meaningful subjects in these poems, but she does it through this incredibly spare and beautiful imagery in her language. I was so thrilled about the way this commission came about, because I first talked to Grant Gershon at the LA Master Chorale about the piece. And shortly after, I met with Eric Whitacre about the piece, who was so excited he wanted to make it a co-commission. And we premiered it both in London and Los Angeles in 2015. And Eric is such an amazing composer and really brilliant. He understands how to get a great sound out of a choir. And so hearing his group rehearse it even the very first time, I was just kind of just taken aback by how gorgeous it was. The emotion of the singers that really made it so special. This is a live recording we did in this beautiful venue in Union Chapel, which is a wonderful chapel in London that's used often as a concert venue. I was a little intimidated working with Eric because I feel like he's such a master at what he does. Just to see how he got an interpretation of the piece so quickly, and also what he found in the piece that he found some things I didn't even know were there, which was so fun. Just ways to phrase things, ways to elongate moments, and to really pull out the emotion in the music. In a way, writing an a cappella choral piece was felt very natural to me, because I've always thought of music more as a combination of individual lines rather than a strict sense of like a harmonic structure and then melody. And really, choral music is all about that. Every part should be its own melody. The real important thing about this piece really was the words. And the fun thing about setting text is that really you spend enough time with the poem and you really live with it. The music comes out of there. It's actually in the text, and it's really often your job just to sort of let that speak to you.